All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Desert Farmer Podcast, episode 39. I need to get situated here. I want to thank you guys. Thank you guys for joining us today. It is the beginning of November, and I know we like to try to keep these episodes evergreen, which means not necessarily need to give you the year because it should always apply in the month that we're talking about it, but how can we not talk about a little bit about the elections that are this year, right? Happens every 4 years for the president. And I just want to remind everybody, get out there and vote. So Lori's going to drop an opinion here. I can already tell. Go ahead.
Well, no, it's not going to be an opinion because, I respect everybody's opinion. But I have been almost obsessed on TikTok.
We're not on TikTok. Why would you be obsessed with TikTok?
Like listening to, all the different...
On a loop. I know. It sucked us all in this year. It's because it's crazy nonsense and it's a circus and too many things going on.
Yeah, but there's a couple people that I never really paid attention to just because I usually don't have time to go, online and pay attention to people. Mm-hmm. But a couple people on there that I am really impressed with and...
Yeah. So the good news is this circus has nothing but clowns. Anyhow, yeah. So we're voting here in the United States here this Tuesday. So everybody get out there and do so.
Yes.
So a couple of points we want to make sure that we cover here, some housekeeping notes for today. The first one is Lori is taking a look at all you're getting too frisky here with tapping. So go right on back over.
Oh my goodness.
So there you go.
Computer 101.
Yep. So the first thing would be if you guys, Lori will be in here with the comments with you guys. So she'll be interacting with you guys down there. So she will see what you're saying, even though we may not bring it up here. But housekeeping note number 2, it would be a question. How do they ask a question today?
Yeah. So if you have a question, just state question before, because like he said that I'll see your comments. I may not necessarily bring it up or respond to it, but questions we want to make sure that we do highlight and talk about. So just make sure you state it as question, preferably in caps, so I see it, it stands out to me, and I can read it here on the podcast.
Very good. That's housekeeping note number 2. Housekeeping note number 3, please give us a thumbs up. That helps us not only today, but in perpetuity. Okay, so we have an agenda. We have one thing on the agenda that we want to cover here before we get into the topic of today, and that would be what?
It would be our highlight of the week.
There we go. So what's our highlight? You were here for it.
Actually, yeah, so as you guys all know that we did an extension off the back of our outbuilding. So we did a covered area. We extended the concrete. So we needed lights and fans out there. So we had those added this week.
So we extended the covering and extended the concrete. So we had a concrete slab that the outbuilding is 30 feet wide by 50 feet deep, or you can do that either way. And we had a 10 foot by 50 foot apron that was that we added to the back of the outbuilding on the backs of the farm side of the outbuilding. And so we extended that by about 6 feet or so, right? Mm-hmm. And then with the overhang, and then we added the concrete. So what we needed, and we found out very quickly with the farm tour last week, is we needed some fans. Right?
Yeah.
Help keep everybody cool especially the bumper seasons when we normally have folks here in the spring and the fall, right? And then of course lights. We've got processing the next 3 weeks, and so we've got some lights out there that are going to help us with seeing in the dark. And that was installed by our neighbor, Jake, and so he runs Redbird Electric, and he's done a fantastic. He is our go-to electrician, and I will tell you, he's the perfect kind of electrician because he is a perfectionist.
Oh my goodness, he's so funny because he'll be like, see something, and I'll be like, Jake, don't worry about it. He's like, nope, I can't do that.
Not perfect.
Like, okay.
I appreciate that with hanging conduit and all these other things, and so yeah, it is pretty funny to watch him work, but he's very good at what he does, and everything's functioning the way it's supposed to. Looking forward to that. So yeah, that was great. So I know we've got a few folks here still joining, and we're going to get to you guys here. Any questions while we're waiting?
No questions yet.
Okay, good. So the topic of today is one that we get consistently, and I think what we're going to plan on doing here for the podcast is it's either going to be a monthly update on irrigation or it'll be a quarterly one, so that we at least give you a seasonal idea of what we do when it comes to irrigation. It is by far our number one question that we get. We get a question about irrigation multiple times a week, almost daily. We get a question, especially in the comment sections on YouTube. Folks watching some of the older material. Most of the views that we get in any given day or month or year, for that matter, on YouTube are actually older videos. It's not the newer content that most folks are watching. It's actually older content, and so a lot of times they're asking questions that we've already addressed. But the number one question we always get is irrigation, and it is so specific to the season. And while it can vary even during the season from year to year, for the most part, there's certain things that we always follow because we found that they work. And that's especially true for us here when it's super hot and dry in our desert environment. So as you guys know, we really kind of look at the growing season from spring, which is usually about February or so for us here in Arizona. And then we look at our growing season actually goes in through this month. So we still have trees right now that are putting on growth. It's not real aggressive like it is in the spring. It's a fraction of what it is in the spring. So we might get an inch or two of growth depending on the type of tree. But all of the trees, with the exception of probably the jujubes and the banana, so the jujubes and the only tropical that we have right now, we see some new growth.
So far.
Yep, coming on to those trees. And so the jujubes are losing their leaves. They're not happy when we get below 60 degrees. We were in the 40s this morning. And so, we were in jackets filming the vlog this morning.
Yeah, I just told Kevin that I was in layers this morning.
Yeah, we both were. I think we both had 4 layers on top. But definitely have the fall weather that's come in full force this week. As far as temperatures are concerned, I won't have the Celsius conversions for you guys today, so you'll have to do those on Google. But in Fahrenheit, our high temperatures this week were about 80 degrees Fahrenheit, give or take a few degrees, so it might have slid a little above or a little below. I think most days we stayed below 80 degrees Fahrenheit during the day. At the peak of the day, that's about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, we're hitting high 70s, which is just beautiful. And then in the mornings, we're in the 50s this week. So this morning was the coldest that we've had so far here in the true fall season, getting down below the 50s. And this coming week, we're looking at 60s, so Fahrenheit, so 60s, low 70s. And in the mornings, by the time we get to next weekend, right in time for processing, for our processing workshop, we're going to be down in the 30s. So we will have chill hours starting this week. And what that does is that basically puts everything into dormancy. So if not hard dormancy, definitely semi-dormancy. All of the growing pretty much needs to stop because any new growth is just going to get fried when we get that frost. So that's what we're looking at as far as temperatures are concerned right now. So keep that in mind as far as our irrigation and what we're sharing with you guys. So I'm going to start with all of our standard size trees. The vast majority of the 180 plus trees, vines, and shrubs that we have here on the farm are a semi-dwarf tree. So, maximum height's going to be about 15 to 20 feet, give or take, tall, and about the same as far as width is concerned. This is going to encompass most of our mulberries, our stone fruit, so peaches, apricots, plums, cherries, things like that. Although we don't have cherries, but it would still be a stone fruit. Pome fruit, which would be your pears and your apples predominantly. Figs, those are predominantly, for the most part, the same size, about a semi-dwarf size. And all of our citrus. So even though we have a couple of citrus that'll definitely exceed that semi-dwarf size here on the farm, especially the pomelo, I know that will be much bigger. And the grapefruit will definitely be much bigger. But for the most part, those are all semi-dwarf as well. So all of those trees at this point, we're irrigating once a week, no more than that. And we're putting about 60 gallons on that tree once a week. And you guys know we do that in an irrigation ring with a couple of exceptions. So that's how much water we have going into that ring. Now, at this point in time, for these trees. If we get a significant amount of moisture, which we have not, it's been extremely dry. We're still in the basically low double-digit humidity at this point, which for most of you who are not in a desert, that's really not fathomable. It's very, very dry. There is no moisture in the air. And so we'll continue to do that because these trees, as you guys know, have a lot of heavy mulch on them, which means the roots are still growing, even though the trees may go into dormancy this week. And so once a week, 60 gallons on our semi-dwarf trees. Our full-size trees, that we only have a handful of those. That would be our pecan trees and our black Pakistan and white Persian mulberries across the back of the farm. These trees are 30 to 40 feet tall at full height, and we're going to allow them to get there. Same thing as width. Those are getting 90 gallons once a week. So same thing, back down to once a week, 90 gallons here in the month of November, while we still stay in this specific temperature range. And then all of our dwarfing trees, those are going to get about half of that. So you're looking at about 30 to 40 gallons of water once a week. All of our grapevines are getting watered once a week, and they're getting 12 gallons. That's drip irrigation on both sides of the vine. And so it's evenly distributed. And again, heavy mulch there. Our blackberries, so all of our berry beds are actually on the same zones as our semi-dwarfs. So they're on drip irrigation. So those berries are probably getting about 12 to 15 gallons once a week.
Yeah.
So that would be all of our irrigated items. Now, we also have some things that are not on automated irrigation. So for example, we have our pastures that we have for our turkeys and our chickens. Those are being irrigated once a day, and we don't have a timer on that, but we can actually start reducing that. So we're probably looking at about 15 to 20 minutes, and we use an oscillating sprinkler for that. So we're doing about half an hour at least once a day, every day. So we're going to probably actually need to back that down to about every other day. So the exception would be the broiler pasture only because we're scalping it with our chickens right now.
Oh my goodness, they are devout. That thing is going to be just dirt here.
Yep. So which is great. We kind of need to start over.
Oh my goodness, yeah.
Yep.
It didn't do so great this year.
No, it actually did okay. It's the life cycle. So the alfalfa's got its life cycle. So that's what we're doing with our pastures. Our garden beds. The garden beds are actually still on the same schedule they've been on all fall here for the last month or so. Those are being watered once. We use drip tape. Those are being watered once a day before sunrise for about 20 minutes. And that's about all it needs. Most of the things in there are going dormant. We have most of the spring stuff is already pulled with the exception of the sweet potatoes. And so those could actually probably be reduced just a little bit. We may look at doing that every other day here, starting next week in particular with our frost coming in. And then we have our onions, which are newly planted here over the last few weeks. So those will remain once a day for 20 minutes, probably for the next month or so, just to make sure they're fully established because those will grow, albeit slowly, all winter long. So I think I got it all. I can't think of what I didn't cover. So if you guys have questions, I can definitely address those. But that is our current irrigation schedule. So again, couple of caveats. The first one would be we are expecting frost or potentially getting frost this week. If we see frost, that will back off. So once we get into those 30s, we'll be looking at every other week, maybe every third week as far as irrigation is concerned, because at that point, the trees are in dormancy. Now, if you have newly planted trees or you're heavily mulching, watering away from the trees like we are here, it isn't going to hurt for you to water once a week. And the reason being, again, if there's no water, so if you don't have any significant rainfall, reason being the roots will continue to grow all winter long. You want to make sure you're supporting that. So we do have some water on them, but it isn't going to need to be quite as consistent. So one last thing. I know that when it comes to your desert adapted trees, so things we don't talk about here too much, but your mesquites and your palo verdes and things like that, these trees go out an extended period of time without water. So we have Moringa, which are similar, although not the same, because the taproots have not tapped all the way through the caliche yet. So those trees will continue to get some irrigation, but very, very limited. So those will be probably about once a month at this point versus once a week, which is what we've been on. And so if you have those on irrigation, you need to be really, really cautious at this point. Once we get down into those chill hours, these trees, your moringas, do not like the chill. We've already seen yellowing leaves, very common. That's basically the tree going into dormancy, even though it's not a deciduous tree, but they will lose their leaves here in Arizona because of the cold. And so once you start seeing that, definitely not weekly. So you're looking at maybe every couple of weeks. So keep that in mind if you have moringa trees on irrigation at this point and it's on the same zone as your fruit trees, you're going to have to do some adjustments there. You do not want to be putting water on those trees consistently all winter long because those will not be growing like your semi-dwarf and other trees will that are truly deciduous. So there we go. All right, I think I am out of breath.
Okay, well, we've got questions on here, and I'm trying to keep myself on track.
All right.
Do you have anything harvested?
Yes. So we, this past week, we harvested all of the Asian pears, right? So
Yeah.
we had the Shinseki pears that we had harvested and shared with you guys. I think it was last week or week before. We've been munching on those. They've been really good.
Yeah, all week.
So, yeah, beautiful, mild sweetness to them, crispy, just beautiful. Just a wonderful mellow flavor. So we harvested the rest of those this week. And I guess a little sneak peek for you guys. We harvested another Waddell pear this morning. So the one that we got has just a little bit of a green tinge on the stem side, but it looks ripe on the blossom side. So I know that my understanding is Reed says those are December. I'm not sure. So we didn't want to bring one on camera today. We got a couple that had bird pecks in them, so we're putting those in the fridge for a week or two to see if they'll last. And then we have the one that we picked on the counter to Blett. And I don't know if you can sneak over me. We might want to show everybody here real quick. No? Or I'll sneak out if you want to say hi. But
Okay, go ahead real quick. Because
Okay.
we also have citrus. So Arizona wintertime is where we have a long season of citrus. So we have been harvesting lemons the last several weeks. They're still a little green, but still have a lot of juice in them. And mandarins would be here in like the next month, but we're losing a lot of those to birds.
Yeah. So we're going to be covering that on the vlog with you guys tomorrow, just to get you guys kind of updated on that because we're struggling with that. I've got some ideas why, but this is one of the current Waddell pears. So I don't know if you're going to be able to...
big.
It's massive, you guys. I mean, well, there's my head. I've got a pretty big head. I mean, not physically, maybe. It's kind of small physically. But anyways, this is definitely about the size of a softball, would you say?
Yeah.
I mean, it's oblong, right? So, but either way, you can kind of see the color. Ultimately, you can see kind of this bottom here. So this is the blossom end. And you can see that you have a little bit of russeting, but you have a little bit of orange. This was further in the tree, which I think we really kind of need to we're trying to focus on is to give it more shade. And then the stem side might be hard to, actually, I think you can see that that's a little bit of green. So when I touched this, I mean, it immediately fell off into my hand. And so as far as weight, I'd say it's probably a good quarter pound or so. I mean, it's actually, and it's solid. So we're going to let this Blett, which is basically just sit on the counter and ripen here for the next couple of weeks. And so we'll have to try this on camera with you guys. So keep our fingers crossed. Maybe we've got a ripe one. We'll see. That's about it, though.
Any chance you could go over finances?
What's this right here?
So that is Pam.
Oh, hey. What's up, Pam?
She
Hey, you changed your
her
name.
name, yes. God, Garden, and Gratitude.
Ooh, I love it. I love that.
Yeah.
We need to put that on a sign. Pam, thank you so much. You are a sweetheart. I'm looking forward to seeing you here over the next few weeks. We're going to have chickens for you real soon.
Yeah.
Real soon. Those all get processed next week.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Any chance you could go over the finances of the farm again? Would love an update. Thanks for sharing your knowledge. And then a second part could be a good winter video.
Yeah, I agree. I was thinking about this morning when I couldn't sleep for whatever reason. But there just kind of some ideas of what we might want to do here over the next couple of weeks until we shut down in December. I think I'd really like to do that after the beginning of the year, only because I know we've got some beef deliveries in December that really add to our revenue. So nice little chunk that's going to go in there right at the very end of the year, assuming they get in on time. So I think I'd rather do that for the beginning of the year. Actually, we can actually go over some of the actual numbers with you guys. At the very least, we can go over some percentages, if not the actual numbers. I don't know how much of that I want to share detail-wise, but we can give you at least some percentages as far as the revenue numbers are concerned, and give you guys an idea of profits. So at least give you guys an idea of our profit percentages. I wouldn't mind sharing those, but it's a great question. We'll have to make sure. I think we might have it on our list of things to cover, but we'll do that once we get our year-end totals. We'll have those at the beginning of the year. Yeah. We're very diligent, and I should say we. When I say we, I mean you are very diligent with keeping up on QuickBooks. So we probably could get an idea of a year to date pretty easily, but I like it when it's clean. Usually we spend the first day or two in the beginning of January cleaning all those numbers up and getting them over to our CPA so we get in line for him, so we can get our taxes done early. We prefer to be early rather than late. But when we owe money, we don't pay until we have to. So that's like a day before it's due when that check gets written out of the checkbook. So good question.
Is it time to cut back and cover the Moringa? I'm still in shorts over here, but I guess I need to pay attention.
Yeah, so
we will. Sarah.
Okay, yeah. So Sarah, we're definitely getting there. I don't know if you're seeing it. We're seeing it on ours. We're getting some yellowing leaves, and we do want to get a final harvest. So once they're yellow, we don't eat those. You know, the idea behind them is green, and we want them as greens. We're pretty darn close. I think we'll be there this week. If not this week, next week, we'll have to start cutting those back ourselves.
Yeah, because I think we did do November last year.
I'm pretty sure it was November. So it wouldn't hurt you to do it now. Even if they get a little bit of growth, so we get a little bit of a heat wave. Our heat waves now are in the 80s for the most part, and you're still cold at night. And that's really what pushes these into yellowing leaves and dropping leaves. And so now's your best chance to get a harvest of greens. And then, get them covered and keep them covered. So those, you just leave them covered all winter long. You don't need to mess with them. Don't need to check on them. Just leave them be because they're going to need it here basically pretty much now. So they'll survive down into the 30s. We're getting upper 30s here. I don't know if you're an AJ. So I don't know if you will in AJ, but my guess is you might. So if you do, you're definitely going to want to look at that here this week. So we'll be right behind you.
I have a Santa Rosa plum tree. It lost about 80% of the leaves due to the heat. About 4 or 5 weeks ago, we had a cool down, which triggered lots of growth. The problem is it's actually blooming.
Okay. Well,
Do you think this will affect the blooming cycle next spring, and have you encountered this problem?
So I haven't had that happen on a stone fruit. At least I don't remember seeing it on a stone fruit. But we've had it happen from time to time on the pome fruit before. And no, it won't affect you at all for spring. The only thing that it could potentially affect is if you have new growth on I'll kind of walk down the scenario. So if you have new growth on a peach tree that basically gets fried, that new growth would have given you peaches in the spring. But you already have new growth from the rest of the season. So the only thing you would lose really is that brand new growth. The rest of this year's growth is going to give you production. That's really the only scenario that I can think of that would affect you in the spring. Otherwise, what's going to happen? They're all going to go dormant at this point. So even though it might have some blossoms, those are definitely not going to survive. Once the sap comes back in, the tree shuts all of that down and it all basically just drops. Again, you may lose any brand new growth. You might lose depending on how cold you get and how quickly it happens, but you may not even necessarily lose that. And otherwise, it's not going to hurt you. So it's just going to go dormant like it always does. Yep, good question. What else we got?
All right, so got Michael. He is mulching with everything. Coffee paper filters, tea bags, fallen leaves. But question, what was your harvest with plums, apricots, pluots, etc.? I know the peaches was good, but what about the other stone fruit?
So the plums have always been a struggle. So usually we've got a question, if we get to it today, is about Santa Rosa plums. We'll kind of address that a little bit. But our plum harvest has always been disappointing here in Arizona. I'll be real honest with you. So the pluots really actually a little bit worse. The only one that seems to do well is the Satlap from Reed and the burgundy plum. But the burgundy plum is alternate bearing. So we got a good bumper crop last year, and then we got very, very few fruit this year. I think the biggest challenge that we have with plums, staying on the plum discussion, is plums are ripe a little bit later in the season, and that's when we have all of our migratory birds, our summer birds are here, and they plow through the fruit. And so, we will literally go out there one day, the fruit's fine, the next day, almost all of it's been eaten. I mean, we've literally seen that, like with the pluary, for example. Mm-hmm. So now I will say the pluary is definitely one exception. It gets a bumper crop every single year, the sweet treat pluary. So that is a cherry plum hybrid. We didn't get it on camera, but we still lose a lot to birds. And it's because it gets to the point in that season where we don't want to keep covering the trees.
Yeah,
right?
We get a handful of those covered with organza bags, and it's just, I think it's time consuming.
Yeah, at that point. Because of the peaches burn us out.
Yeah.
Especially since the apples don't need to be covered. And we're looking at that at almost the same time.
Yeah.
Now, apricots and apriums. So those we got a decent harvest. It was smaller. Those are also alternate bearing, especially the Katy apricot, which is our apricot tree. So not really surprising. We had a good crop the year before, and it was a really light crop this year. So that's very, very common. And that's one of the reasons you didn't see any videos from us as far as harvesting this year. We got very, very little harvest. And I think it's just because we were in that alternate bearing cycle. We're in the trough, the low bearing year this year for those trees. So now those trees also, so we'll be doing our pruning here in a few weeks. Usually we start that at the end of December, so about a month and a half. And with that, we are going to change how we prune. These trees are all 4 to 5 years old. And we've kind of changed. First of all, we changed our diet. So, we've cut back a lot on sugar. In fact, the only real sugar we have in our diet at this point is fruit. And not really, it is the only sugar we have in our diet. So we've cut out carbohydrates in general, with only a few exceptions, and no added sugar. So the only thing we really get that's sweet is our fruit. And the advantage is we have some fruit year round, with very, very few exceptions. We've almost always got some fruit. And then we do freeze some for smoothies. So, but when we get into things like plums and some of these other trees, they're harder. We've got other things we're harvesting at the same time. So we're going to change a little bit how we prune those trees. And, we've got neighbors moving in on all sides of us, which we knew was going to happen. And so we're going to really focus a little bit more on height, tree growth. We want taller, wider trees at this point, which I know is not going to be what most of you guys in the city are doing, but it is what we're going to do. And so we already knew that we wanted to do that from a width standpoint, but not necessarily from a height standpoint. So I know I'm getting a little off track, but I know the question was plums. So when it comes to harvesting, some of that you still may not see quite as much. I will say it does need more. It will take a little more effort to get those crops off of your trees. They definitely need to be covered in order to realistically survive the bird pressure that comes in for those trees. Yeah. So good question. What else?
Our second spring here in St. George has produced 2 weeks of aphid swarms.
Oh.
I've been spraying trees off with water at least every other day. Do you deal with this? Leaves starting to fall.
Well, so what kind of trees? Do we know what kind? What variety?
Did not specify.
Okay, let me know what variety, because that might change the answer here just a little bit. But we have not seen that. I don't see any aphids on anything. Usually we see some on the potted roses from time to time, but I think we're too cold. And we're definitely too dry. So
we would see some in like the garden beds, but
yeah, but I haven't seen
them. I guess a little bit in the apples.
Yeah, but not this time of year. I haven't seen them recently. No. So, and I think it's just because it's just way too dry. So, and we're irrigating on the ground. We're not irrigating anywhere near the leaves, and so there's literally no moisture in the air. We had mentioned that a little bit earlier. Now it should be, I would assume it's the same for you.
Where's St. George?
Is it south? I can't remember if it's south. Either way. But let us know what kind of tree it is. It'll help me answer the question as to whether or not it'll be a concern. But generally, if it's a deciduous tree, it doesn't matter at all. So all of those leaves are going to drop here in the next few weeks. So it literally doesn't matter at all. I wouldn't sweat it at all. Wouldn't worry about it at all. Now, when we do get it sometimes during the monsoon season, and we have moisture on the leaves, and you had mentioned the apples. We do see it there sometimes even during the wintertime. So later, early spring, we'll see that sometimes. Same thing there. Really am not too concerned about it. It's not an issue for the trees. You're not eating the greens, so that's not an issue. And generally speaking, they really don't do much damage. Usually what you're seeing is the ants harvesting the or you're seeing ants doing whatever that harvesting thing is they do with aphids, where they basically feed off of the excrement from the aphids. So the ants are farming the aphids possibly. So if you're seeing that, but even then your ants are going to be going dormant. They're going to hibernate here very, very shortly. We noticed that even today, the ant pressure is a lot lower today than it has been. But generally speaking, I wouldn't be worried.
Yeah. And then talking about picking one new fruit, you remind me so much of myself in my first orchard experience. And that's a beautiful pear.
I know.
Never heard of Waddell.
I know. It's because I think it's just here. But I know,
that's a reed.
That is amazing. I know. It's just massive. It's bigger than any of the apples that we have. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to those trees getting bigger. Hopefully we can get them a little wider and taller. Get several dozen of those here. Be great to get well, we've already been enjoying the Asian pears, which have been fantastic. Yeah. So, but if we can get one that tastes like a Bartlett or a Bosc pear, into November,
Sandra
December.
had terrible winds and about 40 pounds of pears fell.
Oh my goodness. Holy cow.
She has the Waddell also. Gonna make some pear butter.
Yeah, that's all you can do. When life gives you wind, make some pear butter.
You have to let me know how that tastes.
Yeah, that sounds fantastic.
Well, actually, I guess
probably
it doesn't
like
matter
apple.
because...
well, we don't have enough for that.
Well, we don't have any bread either. We don't
do
any
bread.
Toast.
Just eat it out of the jar.
Yes. How old are the pear trees now? The pear does look good.
Yeah, it really does. It's really, I'm impressed with the size too. So I believe we put them in the spring of 2020, if I'm not mistaken. I'm pretty sure those were one of the first trees we put in the ground. So those are 4 years, going on 5 years old. So, and it's taken up until now. We did get a little tiny bit of fruit set last year. Obviously it all got destroyed. This year was the first time we actually got a decent fruit set on those trees. Same thing with the Seckle pears, which are about the same age. And we got a good fruit set on the Seckle pears too. So we'll see how they do here going forward.
Mm-hmm. So 1.5 year in ground peach tree blew over in our dust storm.
Ooh.
Found root rot. Help.
Oh, well, that's the reason why it blew over. So if you have root rot, there's nothing you can do. It's a dead tree. So if you've identified root rot and that's what it is, you have a dead tree. And it's probably the reason why it fell over. We did have really strong winds, so sure, it could have just been a tree blowing over. But a year and a half in, I don't know where you got the tree, but if it was growing substantially and all of a sudden it fell over like that, and especially since you've identified it and you're positive it's that, then it's a dead tree. You're not going to be able to save it. So I'm not aware of a way to do that.
That's Slam Boy.
So
root rot. Now,
I'm assuming it's Texas root rot, cotton root rot. So yeah, if it is, that's a disease.
Are you staking your tree? But then also, is that too much moisture? Does that
it's possible.
feed on too much moisture? Like, are you still watering up close to the root, or?
So Texas root rot doesn't feed on water. It needs moisture, which irrigating will do that. But that's actually a disease. That's a fungus in the soil. And so if you've identified that, what I will tell you when you replace it, okay, assuming that it is, let's do worst case scenario. So let's assume you're correct and you've identified it correctly. You're not going to save this tree. I'm not aware of a way to do that. So when assuming you lose it, you will not want to replace that with a stone fruit because you're going to have the same problem because the fungal spores are in your soil. So it's not going to go away. So you'll have to replace it with a different type of tree. Now, my understanding is pome fruit doesn't have the same issue. So you should be okay with pome fruit. I know that you'll be fine with citrus. So you could try citrus, and I don't know about mulberry. I don't know well enough whether or not mulberry would be okay, but I think it probably will. My understanding is that is a stone fruit problem. So if you've identified that, your best bet is to replace it with an alternate type of tree. Definitely a fruit-bearing tree, though. I would be down for just putting a different type of tree in. So, at some point in time, it may happen to us. It hasn't yet, knock on wood. But if it does, we're going to do the exact same thing. We're going to swap it out with a different type of tree and rootstock that won't be affected.
Yeah.
So, yeah. It's a bummer.
I know.
Yeah.
Mark. Hey, Mark.
Hey, Mark.
When are the pigs going to be ready?
So, the pigs, February and March. So
I have processing dates starting in, I believe, early to mid-February into March. So I'm not sure. I'm working on the schedule as far as who I have grouped together. So I'm not sure which date I have you tentatively slotted on, and hopefully we'll get that out to you guys soon.
Yeah. So, excuse me. Yeah. So we have the big pigs will be February. I guess they have to finish by beginning of March, right? Because then the processor shuts down. So that's one of the reasons where that time frame is where we're kind of stuck. Is the processor sets aside time for the fairs that happen in the spring. So the month of March is basically off limits, and most of April is as well. So what we found is a lot of times the pigs we hold for ourselves are the smaller ones. So we cull the larger ones in the beginning, obviously, for everybody. And then we usually wind up hanging on to the small ones. And so those we've actually gone into late April, May for ourselves, but it won't affect you guys. So yeah. And they're growing good.
Yeah.
They're doing real healthy. I mean, these are some healthy pigs this year.
We've got some beefy ones back there.
Yeah, I've got some stocky little guys. Even the small ones they're putting on weight like nobody's business. And this is perfect weather for them. They love.
They're loving it.
Oh yeah, so they're going to really start packing on the pounds.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Mark was at the farm tour last weekend, so it was really fun, and then has to bring some eggs to share last time. Yes, I got eggs from us, our neighbor, and another friend of mine, and we sold out within, minutes. So
In a heartbeat.
Next time, if you have extra to bring that you want to sell, absolutely, you're welcome
to. It's interesting. We talked about we've got all these moving pieces, and somebody talked about farm financing. One of the things so our accountant made us designate the farm. We have to designate the category, and basically I think it was a poultry farm. I think that's actually what we are, even though it's just a fraction of our business, but or overall revenue, I should say. But I will tell you, the eggs are definitely the gateway drug for everybody. And I think it's because our pricing is about the same as the grocery stores these days. So it's not like we're all that expensive, which we should consider. But either way, I know that once somebody tastes an egg like that, you don't want to go back. I know I don't. I can't. I get sick to my stomach, literally, otherwise. But so we're already trying to figure out how we can expand pasture space because we need to bring in a new batch of layers this coming spring for fall. And so we definitely need to expand. I mean, we could easily double it and still run out of eggs. We never have eggs.
We're always out of eggs.
We don't even get our own.
I have 3 people right now waiting for eggs. And I'm like...
Yep, I know. So
actually 4. Take that back. 4 people.
I know. So the good news is, we know folks that we can source eggs from. Obviously we'd prefer to sell our own because we make more money when we do.
Yeah.
But I know. So eggs are a great gateway drug, though.
Yeah.
So every time we do a tour, I talk about store-bought eggs and explain everybody's experience with store-bought eggs. And as soon as I explain that to everyone, it's like, okay, why am I buying eggs from the grocery store? And it's because you're buying an egg that has been rotting for a month or 2 or longer, literally been slowly rotting in a carton. That's literally what's happening to it. It's oxidizing inside the carton because it's a washed egg. So when you explain that to somebody and you start thinking about it, you're like, that's disgusting.
Yeah.
Versus our eggs. I mean, especially with as fast as we sell them, there are times people walk away with eggs that got laid that day.
Day, 2 days.
Yeah. Yep.
At the most, usually 3 days old.
Yep.
Unwashed.
Yeah. So even though we've got our chickens will come off pasture for a month when we do seeding. So the yolks are not quite as vibrant. They're not as orange color, but even then they're still, the yolk is crystal clear. Sometimes even though they're not rotten, they smell funny in the grocery store. These don't, there's no smell to them at all.
Yeah.
And so, but either way, yeah, I know. We got to figure that out because a lot of folks have figured it out. So. What else? Are we caught up?
No.
Oh.
No, I'm afraid to even scroll down.
Go ahead and scroll down. Let's do this. Let's hit it.
Well, I know, Kevin, he said that Reed is sold out of the Sat Laps. So he's going to replace Santa Rosa with a burgundy plum, but he lost a tree to burn bark.
Yep, we know.
Didn't protect it well enough. We did the
Kevin,
same
we know just how you
thing.
feel, man.
We did the same thing.
Even when we think we got it down and we've got it covered, 2 trees this year we lost, and it was our own fault. Well, the Tropic Sweet was not really 100% ours. That we had something going on with the sap on that tree, but it led to dead bark, and then the potted apple tree. We completely forgot about that tree, and we killed it. Yep. We killed it. So we know just how you feel, Kevin. It's a bummer. The good news is we know how to replace them. So, and we know the Ivy Organics works fantastic.
If you use it.
If you use it. Yep.
Will you do a pruning training camp this winter?
You know, that's another thing I was thinking about this morning when I wasn't sleeping. I think about farm-related topics. But I'm not sure. Last year it was a little. Well, first of all, it wasn't a very good response. We didn't get a very good response, and so it takes time. And
Kevin was here for.
Yep, Kevin was here for it.
How many of them?
Yep, but we didn't have a very good turnout, and it takes prep, and I don't know. It can be a little bit challenging. So I don't know. We haven't decided that yet for sure, whether or not we'll do that. I know that I had a couple, one person in particular that was a little too aggressive, even though I kept asking to slow down, and they didn't. And they were a bit aggressive on that one everbearing mulberry, and we may lose that tree. So because it was I think it got too much sun, because it was pruned too far. So, which, can happen, but, either way, we'll see. I'm not sure. Yeah. Not sure.
So we have John on here. He says that surround that kaolin clay.
Mm-hmm. Kaolin clay.
So a game changer for bird issues.
Yeah. I just don't know if I want to try
the fruit.
Yeah. I just don't know if I want to try to go through that process. So you would spray, it's a clay. So it powders the outside of the fruit.
Oh.
Yep. So you'd have to apply that every time it rains.
Got it.
Yep. So, but no, I agree. I think if we can't figure out a more natural way that's not labor intensive for us, then yeah, we may need to do that.
Yeah.
So, but they don't seem to be affecting. It doesn't affect the lemons. Life gives you lemons. It's because the birds didn't attack them.
Yeah, exactly.
But no, that would definitely work. He's right. So.
Yeah. Do you need to tear the leaves from peaches, apples, etc.? I guess the pear leaves fall for itself.
Yeah, the pear always doesn't have an issue. There's a few that don't have problems. Generally, the plums do a pretty good job at dropping leaves. The pomegranates do fine without it. The mulberries do fine without it for the most part. The only ones that we really see that we need to do tends to be the peaches, only because the tips don't really completely go dormant. So we wind up, and we like to clear them because the biggest thing with this, I will tell you, we always have to do the apples. I don't think we've ever had a year that the apples have gone completely dormant and lost all of their leaves. So we always wind up doing the apples, and they generally need it. But we wind up doing all the trees, and the main reason is because, there's two. Number one, I want to be able to make good pruning cuts. I want to see when I've got a crossing branch and not question it. If I've got a partially broken branch, I want to be able to easily see my pruning cuts. The second thing is we chip all of our branches, and it bogs down the chipper if you have leaves on there. It just makes it more difficult to chip. And so for those two reasons, we strip all the trees.
Yeah.
So we always do. So do you have to? I don't know that you necessarily do, but we've been doing it now for, several years. And so we've always had good success with production. And so I wouldn't want to go back on that either, because I'm convinced that it does help a little bit with chill hours. I'm convinced. I don't know. It's my opinion, but I'm convinced that it does. So, yeah.
So we have Masood on here.
I don't have the thing. Oh, darn it. I forgot. Goodness gracious. You talk real quick. I'm coming back from Masood. Go ahead. You're dead air. Don't give us
All right.
dead
So when do you prune your mulberries?
Mesut.
So we prune our mulberry trees when they are dormant. So mulberries are usually January into the beginning of February. So, but usually January, I think, is about when we prune our mulberry trees.
Yes. So, Masood. Merhaba, Masood. Hopefully I said that right. I'm sure I sound like a child in Turkey.
He was trying to practice this for an hour.
I know. It's nothing like
Spanish. And he probably
Spanish.
still said it wrong.
I'm sure Merhaba. Did I say it right? You got to let me know. He's gonna tell me in Turkish, so I'm not gonna know. Anyhow, Masood's one of our Turkish friends, so he's so consistent with comments and very encouraging to us, and he's here on the live stream. Hopefully I said that right, Masood. So,
That's
anyways,
funny.
Yeah.
Did you ever have the Bartlett pear?
No. Growing wise, no. Obviously eaten a lot out of the grocery store. They taste amazing. But no, we never have. And the Bartlett, it requires way too many chill hours for us. Yeah. So I don't know that we would be able to get it. Now, could we out here in Whitman? Potentially. And that's one of the reasons we have a calmest pear in the ground that's basically not growing. So, because the calmest pear, I think, is about the same, little lower in chill hours. We wanted to give that a shot to see if we can get any production, but yeah, so far it's not anywhere near it. It's a little baby tree still.
Yeah. Do you butcher your hens that stop laying?
Yes. So we'll be doing that. In fact, this time next fall, we'll be doing that. And we've done different things with those hens. It's a stewing hen. And, there's recipes specifically that call for that because they're a long cooking time. So we've done some of those, like coq au vin is fantastic. But you can use a regular chicken in coq au vin as well. So, and you just don't have to cook it as long. But we've used them in soups. So they do fine there.
Chicken noodle soup. Yep. You got chicken and dumplings. So anytime you do cook it for a long time. But we now have pups. So our current hens, when we process them, will actually end up going to dog food.
We had four of the broilers in this batch, which have been a fantastic batch of chickens.
Oh my goodness, so good!
This is about as good as we've ever gotten, and it's made we're overstocked in our tractors.
They're stuffed
because we anticipate a certain amount of losses.
And didn't get them.
We've been doing it for 7 years now. It's very consistent, and we lost one.
Yeah.
Out of 152 when they hit the brooder. So, but we did have 4 that got leg issues, and they don't grow well when that happens. And so we did cull those a week or two ago. And so they were still probably a good 2 to 3 pounds. And then we just quartered them, and then the dogs have been loving them. So bones and all, they're having a great time with it. So that's what we'll do.
Yeah. What about your poultry pasture during winter? Is it growing or not?
Yes. So we will be overseeding. Great question. We do processing next weekend, and we will put the layers into their coop and run and leave them there for about a month. And we're a little late as far as overseeding is concerned, but we're going to keep our fingers crossed that it's warm enough to get a good start on perennial rye. So we overseed it with ryegrass. That winds up being the greens that our spring batch of chickens are on. And then after our spring batch of chickens, we need to overseed heavily with our alfalfa because our alfalfa has pretty much reached end of life. So we haven't seeded that for a couple of years, and it showed this year. It was really weak. And so we're hopeful that, several years now of broilers going across that ground that will get a nice, good alfalfa set here in the spring.
Yeah.
Yep. So no, it'll wind up being perennial rye. So what everybody else in the city does, we're doing the same. And then a good amount of the alfalfa will still be in there. It just goes basically dormant during our wintertime. We don't lose it, but it goes dormant during the wintertime, and it'll come back with the new stuff in the spring.
Yeah. So St. George is in southern Utah.
Oh, it's in Utah.
Yeah,
okay, that
so
explains it.
Just above the Arizona border.
Okay, much colder.
Yeah, typical humidity is around 30, but we're up to 60 right now, waiting for rain.
Okay, that's probably what's happening. So we're down. I don't have my phone on me to see. I know this morning when I look at it every day, humidity was 30% before sunrise, and that's the highest. So that's the peak of our humidity. I haven't looked at it now, but if we're not in single digits, we're in double. Even though we have some cloud cover today, it's breezy out there, so it's super dry. It's nothing like what you're experiencing. So that's the reason why we're not seeing that, and you are. It's probably because it's warm enough for the aphids to still be there, and it's moist enough for them to be happy, is what it sounds like. But I wouldn't be too concerned. Your trees are going to go into dormancy. So if these are deciduous trees, it won't matter. You're going to be just fine. Those leaves are going to be dropping here very shortly anyway, especially for you up there. You're cooler than we are.
So Masood said, wow, thanks so much. Wonderful.
Oh, very cool.
I think you might have said it at least to where he understood what you said.
And I know it's Tuscalar. I'm going to say it completely wrong.
You already forgot how to say it.
I did. I think that's thanks or thank you. Anyways. Hello, my friend.
What are you feeding your egg-laying hens?
So we feed them a standard layer feed from Tractor Supply. So they do get greens every day. So,
they're on pasture.
Yep, they're on pasture every day. And when we first let them out, they are munching on greens. So they attack the greens at the beginning of the day. My guess is they probably eat them off and on during the day. And then especially this time of year, we will get some bug activity in the pasture. So, and they're scratching a lot. We're starting to tear up the pasture at the end of summer. So they're also getting some good bug activity in there as well. But yeah, it's predominantly a layer feed. What is that, 15%, 16%?
I don't
think
remember.
it's 16% layer feed. Yeah, so it does just fine.
Yep. Watched your video last night of the cowpeas because I need some cover crops. When should I put the seeds in the ground, and do I need to amend the soil? I have very sandy soil.
So you shouldn't have to amend the soil. Now, it is a nitrogen fixer, but it needs nitrogen to grow. So keep that in mind. You may need to do some compost just so that you help to kickstart it, or some fish emulsion or something in there to help with that when they first start out. That is a summer cover crop. So we have done really, really well with planting that all summer long. And then they're dying now. So they're going, basically they're all dying at this point. We've actually cut most of them back at this point. In fact, have we cut all of them back? I think we have.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I cut them all out of the beds.
Yeah, so that's a summer cover crop. Your winter cover crop, our preferred winter cover crop is actually daikon. So especially for your sandy soil, some daikon would be a great idea, because you're going to get that taproot that goes down, and then slice it off at the top and leave that in the ground in the spring if you have the spring to give time to. If you're not going to plant until later in the spring or early summer, then you'd be able to put that in and cut that back in the early spring. So February-ish, cut that back, give it a couple months, let the worms do their job. It'll give you some wonderful compost in the soil. That's how we kickstarted most of our beds, was actually the daikon radish. And as much as we're horrible gardeners, I mean, like, not good at all, mediocre at best when it comes to like annual garden veggies, we've had some pretty good success with being as crappy as we are at it. That's the honest answer.
Yeah. Let's see. So John said that he has black Australorp chickens, light feeders. He cold tolerant, just got rid of 3 hens that were 9 years old. Still laid 1 egg a week.
1 egg a week. Hey, at least they're laying.
Yeah.
That's good. Yeah, no, the Australorps, I think the challenge that we've had them before a couple times. We did the black Australorp. Good birds. Overall, a really good bird.
Yeah.
Feed conversion's not so good though. So, it's a bigger bird, and the egg itself is fairly small, at least in our experience. You remember that? You probably don't remember, but
I don't remember.
It was a smaller brown egg. And so, most people, we got a lot of customers, the vast majority of the eggs that we have, we sell.
Yeah.
And so, a small, medium-sized egg next to a larger white egg or brown egg, you get comments from time to time.
Yeah, especially JP.
Yep. So in the end, we really focus on the larger eggs. So I think it's the only reason we didn't go back to those. And then the feed conversion, it's a larger bird. So anytime you have a larger bird, it's more expensive. Fun fact, most people have noticed, if you pay attention, that your brown eggs in the grocery store are more expensive than the white eggs in the grocery store. And do you know why? Dead end.
I think you had told me this before, and I don't remember what you said.
Right. So we talked about feed conversion. So you have your white layers, which are predominantly leghorns or some hybrid of a leghorn. It's a small bird that doesn't require a lot of feed, and it lays a large egg. So especially in mass production, they can get more birds in a smaller space. It's all a matter of cost, right? So it is less expensive to produce a white egg than a brown egg. Every brown egg layer is a larger bird. Yep, because that small bird lays, that small white leghorn or hybrid lays a very large egg in a small bird.
Got it.
Yeah. You guys learned something new today. So,
are you grinding the chicken bones for dogs?
No.
I meat grind my fish farm scraps for mine.
No.
Choking hazard.
We don't. But they're always raw. And so, and they're soft and malleable. So we did a lot of research on these dogs and how they're fed on farms, and the overwhelming vast majority, they're eating raw chicken. So the vast majority of them are. So I don't have that concern. So could it happen? Sure, it could. But these are all not cooked, and so the bones are malleable. And they're also, most of the bones are larger because we do feed them the backs and everything else. They eat the whole thing. So, but yeah, we don't. We tried to put them through the grinder one time, and remember, it didn't go over so well.
Yeah.
Yeah. It still wound up having it was actually, in my opinion, it was worse because we actually had smaller, spikier. So I guess we need something that really grinds them up heavy. So, would we do that eventually? Maybe. I think eventually most of the dog food, in fact, most of the dog food we've had that they've eaten has been ground So either pork, beef, chicken, turkey. It's been mainly that. Yeah.
Do you fertilize your pasture?
Yes, with animals. So that is what our broilers are for. So our broilers do we only do broilers twice a year. And it's mainly because it can only really handle it because of the amount of nitrogen that's in the chicken manure. But that's what our broilers do. So our broilers are for the main pasture, and then our turkeys do an okay job of that on the turkey pasture. Not quite as good. I think at some point in time, we've talked a little bit about this too, that we may change that a little bit once we get our large capital project done for our larger animals next year. We've got some extra, we're going to open up some space for poultry. We kind of need to. And so we may have a secondary pasture. And if we do that, it would be same thing. We'll wind up running broilers across that. And that will help with that. We've also utilized goat manure. So we've done that in the turkey pasture. So we've actually used aged goat manure that we take out of the stalls, and we've used that as a fertilizer in that pasture, and it seems to do pretty well. So, yeah. How we doing? We're almost there.
We are caught up on questions.
This is great. So, and we're right at time.
Yeah.
Perfect. So, okay. So you guys know we've got a couple things coming up here over the next few weeks. We do plan on shutting down. Not plan, we're gonna. So we're gonna shut down for the month of December. There's a few different reasons why we do it, but most of the reason is because you guys aren't here. You guys are busy. So are we. We've watched every year we've been on YouTube. It's by far our slowest month. And, we're just going, it's an uphill battle. Nobody watches the episodes, and most people don't come back in January and watch them either. So we've decided that we're going to take that month of December off. We've done that the last 2 months. We're going to do that again this year. We're going to do the same thing with the podcast. I wasn't sure if we were going to do that, but we are going to do that. In addition, for the next 3 weeks, we have processing that we're going to be doing. So next weekend, we have our chicken processing workshop in the morning on Saturday, and we will be processing birds after that. So I don't know that you guys will see us next week. So if you want to pop in about an hour till, if we can get in here, we will. The following week, we're helping Nate and Tara with their chickens. We probably still may not be here. And then the week after that is our Thanksgiving turkeys
processing.
And that takes
I didn't even think
all
of
morning
all this.
long. Right. So there's also a good chance that we may not be here for that week. But that leaves us basically on Thanksgiving weekend. And so the question is, do we bother doing it on Thanksgiving weekend? I don't know. But I know today is episode 39. And I'd love to hit episode 40 this year. So I think if we don't do Thanksgiving weekend, we may have to fudge and do the very beginning of December so we can at least say hello and goodbye to everybody before the end of the year. So I don't know how much you guys will see us. Hopefully you can catch up with us. If we are able to get in here, we will, even if it's for a short period of time. But I just want to thank you guys for being here today. Today was episode 39 of the Desert Farmer Podcast. Really appreciate you guys being here today. Very interactive audience. We, again, only got to one question that we had. So if we have any last minute questions, we will get to them now. But I just want to thank you guys for being here today. I want to remind you, the most valuable thing we have on the planet is not gold, silver, Bitcoin, definitely not the US dollar. It is time, and you guys choose to spend that with us. I think it's wise. I think it's wisely, but we do appreciate you guys being here. And, this podcast and being here for you guys is one of the ways that, we give that time back to you guys, because we do really appreciate you guys being here so consistently with us. So any last minute question?
Yes, we have a couple on here. So do you have suggestions for do-it-yourself drip irrigation setups or for small orchards, or should we just leave it to the pros?
So I have done I need to keep this short. So if you're going to be utilizing a hose bib and a timer on a hose bib, do it yourself. Because at that point you have access to water, and the rest of it is very easy to learn, especially with drip irrigation, because you can, they actually sell timers. You can add a PSI reducer right behind it, and then the rest of that run, you're good to go. So if you have that done, if You are not going to use your hose bib, and you're going to need a water source for valves. I would encourage you to, at the very least, hire somebody, if you've never done it before, hire somebody to cut into your pipes and do everything else to get the valves set up. Once the valves are set up, a drip irrigation system at that point is, again, very easy to do. But if you're going to go that far, I'd probably have them go ahead and do the rest. Because once you've done the valves, the vast majority of the labor is done. The rest of it's very, very easy. It's very light, shallow trenching. But I will tell you this, definitely spend time with the person doing it. That way you learn how to do it. So volunteer to be their helper. If not, be a hawk around them and watch everything they do. Once you've seen it one time, you will probably be able to do it yourself. I'm not very handy, and I can handle pretty much all of our irrigation stuff unless I just don't want to. Or the very large tasks, we've hired George to do ours because of the sheer volume of work that needs to be done. And I always have him do the valves. He does the valves for us because that's where you can screw up easily, and it takes some expertise to do the valves right. So what else?
So 2 more things. So we have Pam that said, so really you are taking November and December off?
I wouldn't say we're taking November off, but from the podcast, yes. The only reason we'd skip it is because we are covered in chicken guts. And
so we'll still film videos and post videos in November, but I didn't think about that. The next 3 weekends we'll be processing, and hopefully we'll make it inside to do this. But if we are stuck outside, but Slam Boy, I think it was Slam Boy. Yeah, he said, so put up a live stream camera for processing.
I can't. So YouTube will shut it down. So I'd love to, but we can't do it. It's one of the reasons we have the workshop. So YouTube won't let us do it. So yeah, they won't. I know YouTube doesn't even like you cleaning fish, which I think is silly, but it is what it is. So this is their platform. So yeah, unfortunately we couldn't. We'd have to literally do it at the very end of it. And now that I do it, it's just bagging chickens. So
yeah. Okay. So Sam, have you seen any leaves starting to lose their leaves?
Yes. So the jujubes. Yep, the jujubes are losing their leaves. The figs already were. A little bit on the everbearing mulberry, but I think that might be a different issue. We mentioned that earlier. For the most part, no. It's really just the jujubes and the moringa. So both of those are. And it's because both of those hate the cold. They hate it. And it's cold enough at night in the 60s, they're not happy about that. They're not happy trees. And so, yeah, the jujubes are pretty much almost fully dormant. And the moringa are starting to yellow up. So...
yeah.
All right. We good? Did we get it done?
That's all the questions.
All right. Very good. Just a couple minutes after. So again, just want to thank you guys for joining us today on the Desert Farmer Podcast. This was episode 39, right on the cusp of 40. But just want to thank you guys for being here today and remind you, if we can farm on the edge of nowhere,
so can you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, guys.